So hey guys, welcome back to my channel. What if Naruto became the ancient guiding light of romance and got into harem with Asia x Akano x Xenovia x Roswise x Sona x Tsubaki x Yusaka x Koneko x Kuroka x Kaori Kanzaki? Movie. Grace, a powerful ability bestowed to the greatest warriors of heaven. Long ago, there were 4 of these said graces. Lightning, Twister, Sea, and the mightiest of all them, Sun. However, when a great war broke out long before the current era, one of these graces was taken and awaited for the perfect holder. One whose heart was pure and caring for others. It would wait for well over 3,000 years before a man named Escanor was born to bestow itself on him. This grace was the strongest of graces, and it had chosen him to be its carrier. And it was thanks to this that the legend of the glorious sun begun, but not end. Sunshine had blessed itself into his very flesh and had allowed him access to unfathomable power and strength for the day, and at noon he was untouchable by both man or god for the entirety of high noon, although such a powerful grace as strong as sunshine certainly had its drawbacks. For during his last stand, Escanor had used a forbidden spell to not only enhance his mighty form of high noon, but he had made it so that it would transform his life energy into the necessary magic required to keep it functioning, and when the last of his energy had died, he burst into ash before his comrades' very eyes. But, not before leaving a message: the lion will be reborn in the midst of sorrow and misery. And he passed on to the next life, allowing his grace to return to the cycle of reincarnation to wait for a worthy holder to fight with it in battle. It would also wait for 3,000 years before the perfect child was born to hold it and fight using its strength. His comrade in arms and the woman he loved unconditionally wept for him for days, but it was on the 6th day of her mourning that she was overcome with nauseousness. She couldn't understand why she was sick as her magic prevented it, and then she remembered. She and the others had gotten so drunk that they had all blacked out. She had awoken in Escanor's chamber the next morning stark naked next to him, and she had quickly left without saying anything, and this was the day before they had gone to battle the Demon King. She quickly began to use her magic to check why she was so sick just to confirm her suspicions, and she could only cry tears of joy when they were indeed confirmed true. She was pregnant with Escanor's child. 9 months later she would give birth to a set of healthy twins, 1 boy and 1 girl. The son she named after his father in honor of his memory, and her daughter was named Morgan Le Fay. Both her children would grow up to be powerful fighters, but her daughter definitely took after her in the art of magic. Escanor too was definitely a fighter at heart, and he held his name with great pride, much like his father, and had become a holy knight in his father's memory. And upon reaching her 18th birthday, Morgan married Arthur of Camelot as his bride and sired several children in the following years. Escanor himself had married a lovely bride and had settled down to farm the lands so he could look after his brood of surprisingly 10 kids, all twins, for the remainder of his days. Time moved on and the legend of the Great War faded into myth and legend as the legend of Arthur, and many scarcely believed it to be true. This tale is the tale of the last remaining descendant of Escanor, the lion son of pride, one that would live through the ages of history forever. Present day. Rain poured down from the heavens, weeping as if knowing sorrow would fall upon someone. He sat on the roof of the adjacent house, waiting, watching. These were the last remnants of a dangerous house, and he had been so happy to find out that the others had been wiped out by his allies. With this, and possible threats would be cleansed. From what he was told, it was a family of 3. The parents, of course, and a newborn infant that could be molded if he wanted, but he would rather wipe out the possible threat just to be safe. He smirked as he watched the car pull into the driveway, and a blond man with a lovely redhead that could rival a grimoire climbed out of the car before grabbing the car seat that held their bundle of joy. It was finally time to put an end to the Arthurian legends of old once and for all. This would be so fun, killing the last remnants of the Knights of the Table. Waiting until they went inside, he silently jumped off the roof of the house and walked across the street and up the driveway to the house. He silently opened the door and simply allowed himself in, regardless if he was invited or not. He smirked as he heard the 2 parents in the living room and the baby in its own room, or maybe even a crib nearby. This would be perfect. He walked into the door of the room and cleared his throat. "Hello dear madam. My name is Rizvam Lucifer, son of Lucifer himself, and I shall be the one to put an end to your miserable lives today," he greeted her. "It doesn't matter if you are the son of Lucifer or God himself, get out of this house." The redhead yelled out as she turned around to face him, her hair flying about in her anger. Rizvam simply snorted as he held his hand up and pointed at her. Dare to attack me, and you won't get far, human, he stated. Oh yeah, well see about that. She yelled as she grabbed a sword. It looked oddly familiar to Rizvam, but he couldn't place where he had seen it, from the fireplace mantel, and pointed it at him. How pathetic, to use a piece of scrap against me, he said as he pulsed his power, and it suddenly fell from her grip, shocking her. What the, why can't I grip the sword? She asked herself in shock. Rizvam gave a dark laugh. Surprising, isn't it? The power of the legendary commandments that the dark half of my grandfather created. This one in particular is called benevolence. It prevents those with hatred in their hearts from hurting anyone in my presence. I have others in my possession, but they are currently out on loan to some associates of mine for the time being. I am still looking for 3 others to loan out the commandments to while I hold on to the commandment of benevolence, as it is so useful to me at the moment, he said in a bone-chilling voice. The redhead merely glared at Rizvam. I don't care. So what, you have some strange voodoo ability that forbids me from holding my ancestor's sword Caliburn. I'll still make you pay for threatening my family, she called out. Rizvam merely raised a brow. So that's why the sword looked familiar. It was the legendary Sword of Kings. It was the sword that Arthur himself pulled from the stone. Many thought that it was Excalibur that was pulled from the stone, but it was in truth Caliburn that he had pulled from the stone. Oh sure, the Excalibur had been in a stone, but the stone that held Caliburn was the one that only sealed itself until it chose a wielder. Legend has it that the souls of previous holders sealed their very memories inside so that the next wielder could learn their power and grow infinitely stronger. After all, this sword was the most powerful sword in existence. With no less than 15 different holders and 1,000 techniques created and improved by each holder, it was a sword meant for killing even gods. Rizvam smirked. Impressive. To think that such a powerful weapon would find itself here. I can only imagine what your ancestor would say if he saw it. He said, but then again, the last living relative of Arthur Pendragon is only capable of holding the sword due to the blood in their veins. Not really what you would call worthiness, but more along the lines of I am the descendant of such a hero, it qualifies me to hold it, so it is basically a cheat to hold it. You aren't even really worthy of holding it, as Arthur would be able to resist my commandment and even strike me down without moving from his spot. How pathetic, he said as he created a sword out of his dark magic and allowed it to float from his hands. I hope you said your prayers, 'cause this the end, he said as he sent it flying forward where it pierced the redhead in her belly. The woman coughed up blood before she fell to her knees beside the ancient sword and glared at him. Go to hell, you monster, she said before she fell to the ground in a puddle of blood. HMPH, I was born there, so I don't need to. Rizvam responded before he walked through the house. He had thought the husband was in the room with the wife, but apparently he had been wrong. He was curious though, how did a descendant of Morgan Le Fay meet up with a descendant of that man and procreate? It is certainly unheard of, and he had never thought it would happen. Apparently small miracles did happen in the strangest way. He shook his head and walked through the house and spotted the husband in the kitchen with his back to him. You seem awfully calm for a man about to die. Rizvam noted. Although I may be about to die, the sun shall never set, as a new dawn approaches. The grace has long since been bestowed to the one worthy of it, and it will light the darkness for all who seek fulfillment in God's light. Do as you wish, for I am ready to meet my maker, the blonde said as he got to his knees. Rizvam shrugged. He could ponder what the man meant later, but right now he had a family line to extinguish. Crafting another sword using his magic, he thrust it through the man from behind and watched as he fell dead, and then left his cooling corpse to search for the brat. It didn't take long, 'cause the sound of crying could be heard from the room down the hall. So he decided to take his time going to the babe. When he reached the room to the newborn, he smirked when he noticed a tuft of orange hair in the crib. He honestly didn't have anything against the child, but he just wanted to be sure that there would be no resistance when he brought the world to its knees when he ended the world. Pulling out a shimmering dagger, he raised it up over his head and brought it down. However, what even Rizvam didn't expect was a blistering heat to burst forth as a ball of flame struck him in the face, forcing him to drop his dagger as he cried out in pain. And as the searing heat burnt his flesh, he could see if only just a man holding his hand out towards him as the words, "You shall not touch him," were uttered by the spirit of one Escanor as he guarded his last descendant with his very will from the beyond. Rizvam glared at the apparition before he simply turned around and left the house as fire began to lick at the walls of the house. HMPH, so the brat managed to summon a bit of fire, so what? Now had burned to ash with his parents. Escanor looked down at the child and smiled, and then he walked to the living room, the spirit's form flickering as he stopped at the mother's body. Placing a hand on his heart, he nodded to her and picked up the sword next to her and proceeded to vanish into thin air, taking Caliburn with him. As he vanished, he thought back to the babe in his crib, a worthy one indeed. He shall inherit more than my power in the future. I see many great things happening with him, thought the spirit as his form broke into particles of light and spread across the newborn's body. First response quickly arrived at the burning house and put the flames out. They soon found the bodies of both parents and the still crying babe in his crib. The funeral for one Kushina Uzumaki Pendragon in Minato Namikaze Pride was a sorrowful event for both friends and relatives. But in the end none were able to claim custody for little Naruto, who was soon placed in an orphanage. As he grew, he soon learned that he had been given some strange ability. It only showed itself during the day, but he knew that growing big enough to stand at an adult mon's height at 5 was certainly not normal. So, the matriarch of the orphanage kept him hidden around the afternoon hours, making him feel more depressed that nobody would adopt him. But he also figured that nobody would simply because of his curse. -5 years later, he sat in the park all on his own with a downtrodden look on his face. Why did nobody want to play with him? Was it because of his strange transformation during the day, or was it because they saw him as a freak of nature? Why had God cursed him with a curse like this? It was unfair. Why wouldn't anyone play with him? The sound of approaching footsteps alerted him, causing the ginger-haired boy to turn. He notices that it is 4 young girls roughly the same age as him. 3 of them have jet black hair, but the length of their hair differs. One is cropped at the shoulders while the other 2 have hair that is able to reach the middle of their back. The redhead has hers long enough to reach her back, but it is kept in a braid of sorts to make it seem neat and proper. The one thing he did notice was that their outfits were practically the same. The only difference was the color scheme they had. The redhead had a red dress that went to her knees and had a white ribbon around the waist. The short black-haired girl had a blue dress with a pink ribbon. The black-haired girl that had waist-length hair wore a green dress with a white ribbon. And the last girl had a purple dress with a red ribbon. Sheesh, it was like he was staring at sisters or something. Hello, he greeted shyly. Hi, hello, greetings, good afternoon. They all greeted back. What do you want? Are you here to make fun of my curse or are you here to play? He asked warily. This got looks of confusion from the quartet of young maidens before they pushed that to a side. They could find out what he meant later. However, the redhead answered first, "No, we're just here to play. We don't know about a curse," she said honestly. She then shook her head. "My name's Rias Gurmiri. This here is Akano," she said, pointing to the girl in a purple dress, "and this is Sona Citri," she said, motioning to the girl with a bob haircut before motioning to the girl with 2 different colored eyes, "and this is Tsubaki Shinra," she introduced everyone. "And Naruto Pendragon. So, you don't mind playing with a monster like me?" he asked hopefully. This caused the short-haired young girl to give a giggle. "You're funny. There's no such thing as a monster," she said to him. But the lady at the orphanage says I am cursed. She says I can't be adopted by anyone because I am a monster," said the young boy. Era, you are anything but a monster," the young girl with a purple dress told him. "Yeah, to me you look like a normal boy," the other girl said. Seeing the mood about to turn somber, the redhead simply spoke up before anything else depressing could be said. "Why don't we play a game of tag?" she asked. "Yeah, but who will be it?" the bob-haired girl asked. "He will. That way he can have a turn first and then we can play in order of age," the redhead said, smiling. The other little ladies quickly agreed, much to the boy's confusion, and then the game begun, after they taught him how to play tag like they knew how to play, and the day was soon filled with laughter. Until noon, that is. Naruto felt his body heating up, and he felt his eyes widen in terror as he looked up to the sky. He felt his heart skip a beat. he needed to get out of here before they saw his transformation. He couldn't let his friends see him when he turned into the monster. He quickly stopped running after his new friends and begun to run into the woods that surrounded most of the park, the grass underfoot drying up and turning brown as it died. He pushed past many trees to try and get away from the area lest he be discovered by the girls. He just couldn't, let them see him during noon. He pushed past a tree and he felt his fear rise as he watched the tree topple over as he hit it with his shoulder. The curse was getting worse. Noon was almost upon him, and he still hadn't fled far enough yet. He had to reach the grotto, just until he reached the grotto. He burst through the foliage and hit his knees as he collapsed. Damn, he was too late. He felt his shirt burst into flame as his muscles bulged with unrestrained might. Fire licked across his body as the sun reached its peak. The one had reappeared. He gave a cry as he rose up and begun to run again, the ground burning away as he ran on. Where was the grotto? Why hadn't he reached it yet? He gave a grunt as he pushed a tree to the side and then felt himself falling freely through the air. A crash and he felt himself land, but he remained unscathed as he was currently invulnerable to all forms of harm. This minute of high noon was his curse, and he couldn't stand it. It was the longest minute of hell he had ever experienced in his life. Climbing to his feet, he charged forward intent to find the grotto. He just had to find the grotto and remain there for 15 minutes to allow his body to cool down enough so he could return. Unbeknownst to the boy, 4 figures flew above him and watched as he ran through the foliage. They could only marvel his transformation and ask themselves why they had never met anyone with as much magic as Amal before. However, they soon felt as his power begun to wane as the sun moved out of its position of noon. This was perplexing. How was he getting weak all of a sudden if he had just been as powerful as 2 of their leaders not even a moment ago? Was this the curse he spoke of? They soon watched as he collapsed to his knees, breathing roughly before he allowed himself to roll onto his back to look up at the sky while he seemed to not notice them above. Why? Why did his curse have to make him so strange? The 4 devils, well 3.5 as there was a hybrid amongst them, all looked at one another before an unspoken agreement was made. If he wanted to reveal this secret to them willingly, they had to reveal their true nature to him as well. Returning to the playground, they waited for Naruto to return. Acting as if he hadn't run off, they resumed their playing as if there was nothing wrong. Of course, when one dealt with 5-year-olds, nothing ever went the way you planned cuz they're 5 years old. So when the time for Naruto to leave came, the girls bid him farewell till the morrow, and then Rias, the redhead, and Sona, the bob-haired girl, found their siblings and told them about the boy with strange abilities that made him grow strong as them at noon and weaker as sunset approached. Of course, thinking that Rias and Sona were using their imaginations, Sears X Lucifer and Seraphal Leviathan thought nothing of it. The next day came soon enough and the girls met up once again with Naruto. Seeing his new, and possibly only, friends approach, Naruto gave a happy wave. "Hi girls," he said happily. "Hi Naruto-kun," Akano said smiling. "You guys ready to play a game of hide and seek?" he asked hopefully. "Yeah, let's do this," Rias said smiling. And soon the game of hide and seek begun. And then, noon approached with swift feet. As Naruto felt his transformation begin again, he swiftly took off towards the place he called the grotto. And this time, the girls followed behind just as he left. As Naruto reached the grotto, a lovely place that had a waterfall and lovely garden of sorts, the girls burst through just as Naruto collapsed. Rias walked up and stopped several feet away, his body heat too much to handle. "Naruto-kun, is this why you ran off yesterday?" she asked him. "This is my burden, and you shouldn't have followed me here. This is the only place that can contain this curse. If it were to get out of control you could get hurt or worse," he said to her. "Naruto-kun, while we didn't say this yesterday, do you think we could reveal a secret of our own?" Sona asked him. "What secret? How your mother and father left you after a curse was given and wanted nothing to do with you?" he asked as tears of anger spilled from his eyes. That was what the orphanage matriarch told him. How his parents must have hated him enough to simply drop him off at the doorstep. Akano gave a sad sigh as she watched his noon form fade away. "Well, no, but it is a secret that is much like your own," she said as the others nodded. "See, we're not exactly humans," she said, poking her fingers together. Naruto gazed to the lovely girl in confusion. "What do you mean?" he asked. Several pops later and the four girls unveiled their wings to him. We're devils, Naruto-kun. Much like you, we have gifts as well, Tsubaki said as she created a mirror using her mirror Alice power from her sacred gear. Rias held up her hand and conjured a small ball using her power of destruction while Sona called up a ball of water and Akino created several sparks of lightning. Your power isn't a curse. It's a gift that is meant to be used. How you use it depends on you, and if you use it for the greater good then you can become a hero to many, she told him with gentle smile on her face. Really? Do you think I can make this curse work good enough to become a hero? He asked. Of course. Rias smiled at him before getting to her feet. As the day ended, the children all bid each other farewell and Naruto returned to the orphanage. As he entered the door, the old lady that ran the place scoffed at the young man. And so you came back from playing with those so-called friends, did ya, demon? She asked. Yeah, and they are my friends Gilda-san, so never doubt for a moment that they aren't, he said to her. That hubris can get you hurt. Remember this though, as long as you have that cursed power of yours, no one will love you. You will forever be alone, and unloved, she told him before she walked away. Later that night a blue glow filtered into Naruto's room before one Sona Citri appeared beside his bed. In her hand he held a solitary rook piece that allowed her to turn normal humans or even devils or fallen angels into her peerage members. Placing her hand over his chest she recited her chant and watched as the piece sunk into Naruto's chest with a smile. Such a powerful peerage member would certainly be worth using a rook piece. Time moved on and Naruto would eventually learn of his place in Sona's peerage as a rook. Although he didn't like that she had turned him unwillingly, her reasoning was simple. To allow him to grow and make others learn to believe in his power. To turn his cursed gift into a beacon of hope. Of course, after hearing her reason he immediately loved the idea and traveled to the underworld with her to see the sights she spoke of time and again. It was there he met one Ajuka Beelzebub and showed him his hated power. It took mere moments for the genius to figure out how to suppress his powers and create a gadget just for that purpose. And now 11 years had passed and Naruto had been enrolled to the formerly all-girls school of Kuo Academy. It had changed to allow boys to enroll, but this allowed the more perverse of them in due to the young men wanting harems for themselves. Naruto however went to the school to look after his greatest friends. Akino Himehime, Rias Grimori, Sona Citri his king, and Tsubaki Shinra the queen of the peerage he was part of. Of course, with all the perverts attending, someone had to run interference for the girl's sanity, and who better to do that than an honest gentleman like Naruto Pendragon. Of course he never got the memo of the job as middleman would be a rough one. There were 3 persistent, young men, cockroaches of the school, that attended, and it had been deemed a miracle that they had yet to be expelled from the school. Naruto simply called them the perverted idiots, the school had dubbed them the perverted trio. He had once again run into them peeping on the kendo club and had simply tied their shoes together before he had nicely notified the young women of what the trio were doing. Of course it was just so fun to watch as 3 dumb perverts get the snot beat out of them and he couldn't help but give a satisfied smirk each time it happened. Naruto could care less about what happened to 3 simpletons and went his merry way. As one of 2 great gentlemen of Kuo Academy, Naruto merely saw it as his duty to ensure the girls had it easy, and he would certainly put perverts in their spot if it meant that others could have peace of mind. Walking through a door he smiled as he saw a woman he loved more than anything, but unfortunately could not have, reading a piece of scripture. He knocked on the wall to let her know he was there and she looked up. Sona-sama, I am here, he told her politely. So you are. Was there any problems in your excursion last night with the stray devil? She asked him. None, but then again they cannot match the might as one such as I, even when the sun has gone down for some rest, boasted the young man smiling. Sona smiled softly as she heard her rook. He was proud, no doubt about that one, but he would only answer to 1 out of 5 people personally. One was of course herself as his king of the peerage he had been brought into. The others were Rias, Tsubaki, Akino, and Ajuka-sama. He simply said he would listen to the green-haired as he had found a solution for his curse to be held back for the day. The necklace he wore around his neck acted as a suppressant, sealing away all his power for the day, and it stored it inside for later uses. He of course had a different item to use, but that was strictly for raiding games they would later participate in. He respected those that respected him, and for those that didn't he simply ignored. The worst of those he did not respect were of course the perverted trio, Issei Hyoto, Matsuda and Motohama. And let it not be said that Naruto didn't enjoy torture cause those three were constantly on his list of those to torment. Sona nodded. Very nice Naruto, so I assume you are here for another assignment before our newest recruit comes by. She asked. If you deem it worthy then I shall accept regardless. Naruto said as he placed a hand to his chest like some old knight. Sona gave a light giggle, he was so hapless with his sense of duty it was cute. No wonder Rias was considering doing the deed with him to get out of her arranged marriage with him. Maybe she should know bad Sona no pervy thoughts. She shook her head and cleared her throat. Well, seeing as Rias is scouting Issei as a possible member for her own peerage, and we have just brought Saji-san into the ring as one of us, I was thinking you can help Rias out by going to her and offering your help in bringing him in. And no, you can't smack him around for being a perv. As much as I hate to say it, she scowled causing him to scowl in annoyance as well. HMPH, very well it is as you desire Sona-sama, then I shall not smack him around, he said reluctantly. Sona nodded, that's alright Naruto-kun. Now before I let you handle the rest of your classes, how was your night? Seeing as you hardly sleep unless it's time for day and night to transition around, she said. The night was a lovely breeze. But compared to her Herm, forgive me but it was a delightful evening Lady Sona, he said as red tinged his cheeks from embarrassment. He had about to go into some poetry spiel there. Sona gave a light giggle at his reddening was just so cute to see him get flustered like that. Just when you thought he couldn't get embarrassed, this happened. -1 week later. Naruto nodded his head as he heard his master's words, so Issei-san has become one of us, but he is only worth 7 pawns due to his sacred gear. Interesting. He said. Yeah, but he holds no potential as a fighter. His magic count is practically at 0 and apparently he has only accepted his turning simply because he can create a harem if he gets strong enough. It's honestly disgusting to think about. And yes, while I realize there are devils that hold all female peerages that is no way for a devil to simply want to gain ranking, it's so rude. Tsubaki said in disgust. So the only thing of value is the sacred gear residing in him? Saji asked. Precisely Saji-san. Other than that he might as well be a ordinary human. Sona said. Naruto cleared his throat. Sona-sama, if I may ask, when do you wish for me to introduce myself as a devil to Issei-san? He asked his king politely. This evening if you would. Seeing as that is when the orc gets together that should be the best time to do it. Sona told him. As you wish Sona-sama. Naruto said. Later that day. Naruto walked into the old schoolhouse and then arrived at the room Rias and her group could usually be found in for the afternoons. He could hear voices in the room where Rias and the others usually met meaning that they were introducing themselves to Issei. Opening the door he gave a wave, and I have arrived, are you surprised? He asked. Era, Naruto-kun should just barge in and make a commotion. Akeno said gently. BB Bucho, he's a devil too. Issei asked shocked, since when is the gentleman of Kuo Academy a freaking devil? He asked. Since 11 years ago. Naruto answered. It was a rhetorical question. Issei shouted. Rias sighed and rubbed the bridge of her nose. You will have to forgive Naruto, his sacred gear is either unregistered or possibly even a new one, and we are still learning about it. One thing we do know is that it boosts his hubris to unbelievable levels. However, he is a part of a different peerage. He merely helps us train, and seeing as you are the newest addition, it's time to get you ready, she said as Naruto walked over to a cabinet and begun to rummage through it. Walking back to the confused Issei, Naruto explained what she meant. My sacred gear allows me to harness the power of the sun for the entire day. As noon approaches my strength grows until noon reaches its peak. After that my power begins to dwindle until the night. I wear this necklace around my neck to store power and it has steadily gathered power from the last 11 years since I have donned it. If I were to absorb the amount of energy from the necklace now I would be releasing the equivalent of 17 nuclear bombs blowing at once. However, if I merely unleashed part of my power I would be untouchable, he boasted as he walked over with a stack of papers. Your first job as a devil is to increase the number of contracts you have. It is simple, he said handing them to Issei. All you have to do is hand these flyers out to those with an abnormal amount of desire. They take the flyer and call you to do something for them. Upon doing what they want, you get paid. Nothing like the Dark Ages, but something that is easier to accept. Money, things of value or even things they do not need or want. There are exceptions to what we are willing to accept, but I am sure you understand. Naruto said. I get it. Hand the flyers out, go work, get paid. It really is simple. Issei said, so when do I get a harem? He asked. Naruto snorted in disappointment, you are nowhere near the level for such a reward. However, if you do manage to get promoted to high-class devil, then you may search out other members for a peerage that can be a part of the dream you have conjured, he said before he turned to Rias and Akino. Rias-sama, Akino-sama, I shall take my leave. I was only here to explain the work of being a devil and I have fulfilled my part. Sona-sama is expecting me soon and I have to hunt tonight and I must prepare. Yes, well, see you there. Rias said as Naruto nodded and took his leave. Issei looked at his master in confusion. What does he mean hunt? Hunt what? He asked. And who is Sona? He asked. After you return here we are going to join Naruto and the peerage he is part of to take out a stray devil. You are going to need to know what happens for this hunt, but they will be explained when we reach the spot we need to be tonight. As for who Sona is, you will see tonight. Now, I believe you have something to do, she said looking to the stack of papers in the new devil's hands. Issei nodded his head and ran out the door to begin his journey to become Harem King. Akino watched as her king gave a heavy sigh. Rias, what's the matter? She asked in concern. If it weren't for his sacred gear I wouldn't have even glanced at him. And now that he is one of us, I can't help but shudder each time he looks at me. It's so disgusting the way he glances at me, it makes my skin crawl. I feel like I am in Riser's presence each time he leers at me, she said shuddering. Well, why not extract his sacred gear and then give it to someone who can use it? Issei isn't all that special and he isn't worth more than a single pawn if he didn't have it, she said. Like who? Rias asked. Well, Naruto-kun has always been talking about taking the necklace off due to it starting to reach the limit of its sealing ability and he could take it to use. And this does happen, we can trade him between both your peerage and Sona's peerage. He will certainly deal with your problem with you know who. Akino said. You know, I will have to discuss this with Sona. I think she might actually like it. Rias said smiling. Naruto sat on a chair, sharpening his weapon. It had been given to him by Lord Falbium, one of the four Mao of the underworld, as it was simply sitting in his storage and nobody but Naruto could lift it, so it had been a gift to the devil. The weapon is a giant ornamental axe with a blade shaped like a crescent moon, similar to that of a monk's spade. The axe also features two golden protrusions, one larger than the other, with the white tips of a spear. The longer one is in the middle at the top of the axe and the smaller one is on the opposite of the blade of the axe. The handle is dark blue and it features a golden semicircular guard with 4 golden spikes on it. Its design specs and distribution of weight are, likely intentionally, off. Most of the weight is concentrated in the head, leaving it off balance, and even more difficult to wield than its impressive weight would already make it. This was the very weapon that his ancestor had, unknowingly to our protagonist, used thousands of years ago in a holy war, the divine axe Rita. Said so on the blade as it was engraved there. As he sharpened the blade of his magnificent weapon, he waited for the others to arrive. It was nearing dusk, so he would have to get his sleep in for 3 hours, so he had to work steadily to ensure he didn't mess up his weapon. A final stroke of his magic whetstone and the blade seemed to shimmer in enjoyment as he then grabbed a polishing bristle and begun to dab it across the blade to give it a glorious shine like the sun. Several dozen more dabbles and Naruto sets the bristle aside to reach for a rag to gently wipe the excess grime away and smiles pleasantly as the blade shimmers in the waning light of day. A yawn escapes his lips and he looks outside and notices that the sun is reaching its lowest point on the horizon. It was time to rest, it seems. Standing up, Naruto walked over to the wall and placed it on the outcropping carved into the wall and returned to the couch and sat down where his eyes closed and sleep embraced him. It felt too soon for him as somebody begins to shake him and rouse him from his sleep, causing his eyes to slowly open as he gives a wide-mouthed yawn. Smacking his lips tiredly, he looks to the one who roused him and sees the lovely Akino standing in front of him. Akino-san, why are you waking me? He asked tiredly. Era, sorry, but I was told to. Issei is being taught what devils are and how they operate. In fact, you actually missed the hunt as it's been 5 hours. She said, causing him to stand up abruptly, only to regret it as he bashed his face right into Akino's breasts where the two fell to the ground moments later. As they landed, one of the magnificent globes popped out unexpectedly and Naruto raised himself up to apologize only to pause as he noticed the bit of flesh that had escaped, causing him to go pale. Akino, I am so sorry, I didn't mean to do this. He panicked into a stuttering mess as he tried to avoid looking at her naked breast. I didn't know Naruto-kun was so bold to do such a thing. Maybe I should reward him for admitting he is a eki, she said, purring at his look of embarrassment as he tried to deny the fact he had glanced at her breast. Not that he didn't enjoy the sight, but it was just improper for him to see it in such a way. Akino wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck and pulled his head down and whispered in his ear, I know, but I certainly wouldn't mind it if you did. Just know if you take it to the next level you have to responsibility for me, in a seductive tone that did nothing for little Naruto tucked away at the moment. Akino then gave a light lick to Naruto's ear, causing him to shudder in both arousal and fear. Arousal due to the fact he was laying on one of the most beautiful girls he had ever known. Fear due to the fact he didn't know if he was being watched by his master or anyone else at the moment. Luckily, help arrived in the form of one Rias Grimori to the sight of Naruto struggling to get up off the floor and a bare-breasted Akino trying to make the poor guy faint from shock. Akino, let him up and put that away, she said, causing both to look over at her. Rias-sama, this isn't what it looks like, I swear. Naruto stuttered out. I know, that's why I am not doing anything, Rias said calmly, though her eye did twitch in annoyance as Akino seemed to grip Naruto tighter. Bucho, can't we snuggle a little longer? It would be so cruel to end this affair right now. Akino seemed to pout. No, now let him up. Besides, you two aren't dating last I heard, Rias said. Well, I certainly wouldn't mind dating him. Akino smirked up as she grabbed Naruto's hand and placed it on her breast and forced him to squeeze it, eliciting a moan of pleasure from the lovely young woman. Naruto's face began to glow from the embarrassment. Akino, please stop this, he pleaded. Is that your pocket knife or are you just happy to see me like this? Akino smirked up as she felt Naruto grow more aroused. Akino, stop now or I wait that won't work, shall only get more aroused by it. Rias huffed as she shook her head, just let him up please. Or do you want me to tell Sona what you're doing? She asked. PFF'd, shall probably join in. Remember what happened when we were 5? Akino asked with a blank look. Do not bring that up, the redhead exclaimed as her face turned red. Is that jealousy I detect? Akino giggled out. Why you are so uncouth, Akino? Rias sputtered out. Suddenly the door opened to reveal Sona as she peered inside the door. Hey guys, have you seen Nar? My. She gasped as her cheeks begun to turn red. I am so sorry, I didn't know he and Akino-chan were having a moment. I can come back later, she said. Sona. Rias cried out, it's not like that, she was just teasing him, she said. Doesn't this remind you of when we were 5, Sona-chan? Akino asked as she made Naruto squeeze her breast again. Oh, you are such a animal, Naruto, she moaned out. Sona sighed as she pinched the bridge of her nose. She hadn't changed a single bit. What was she saying she wasn't ever going to change? She sighed again as she looked at Akino. Could you please let him up, he has another hunt. And this time it involves some rogue vampires from the Tepes family, she told Akino. The hybrid gave a pout. But we were about to get naughty, she said as she rubbed Naruto's hand deeper into her breast, causing him to groan. Akino, now, Sona said harshly. Please, she said. Akino sighed as she released Naruto's hand. Alright, fine. Ruin my fun, she muttered as she placed her teat back inside her shirt and fixed her attire. Sona nodded her head. Thank you, she said before looking to Naruto. You can return to your residence, Naruto. It'll be by later to discuss what transpired for Issei-san's first hunt with Rias, and then we shall have other matters to discuss, she said as Naruto nodded and left via his teleportation circle. She looked to Rias. Are you sure you want to put him up against Riser next week when he comes? You know what will happen if Riser decides to actually threaten you, Don? Why you? She asked the redhead. Help kill him, and that is something that the underworld would probably welcome. Rias responded. Era, so casual to plotting murder. Akeno smiled. You have no room to talk with how you did that stray devil tonight. Rias and Sona said together, causing Akeno to bump her head and stick her tongue out. I know. Akeno laughed as she lowered her hand and put her tongue back in her mouth. You may leave now, Akeno. I have some things I would like to discuss with Sona before I depart back to my residency. Rias explained calmly. Of course, Bucho. As you command, the busty young woman said as she left as well. Are you sure that when we rescue the nun from the fallen, you want to not only add her to your peerage, but extract the sacred gear residing in Issei? She asked. Yes, I am sure. I have been having him work these past couple of days, and no matter what I offer, he still remains at the same power level. When Asia joins the peerage, I'll erase her mind as well as Issei's and take his gear and give it to Naruto and well exchange him when needed. He is potentially the most powerful devil in existence besides my brother, but we need to reveal his power in such a way the underworld cannot deny him his promotion like it was promised 3 years ago. Rias answered. Very well then, Sona said, I guess I will be seeing you in 3 days to eliminate the fallen angels at the church, she said as she left to go talk to Naruto as she had told him she would. Reappearing in Naruto's living room, she watched as he stared out his window and down out to the city below. Naruto, she said, drawing his attention as she sat down on his couch. Lady Sona, you wished to speak with me? He asked, not turning around as he watched cars drive on. Yes, but it wasn't about what happened tonight, it actually involves something entirely different, she said to him. May I inquire as to what it is you need me to do? I will perform the task given to me by the best of my abilities, he said. I have been talking to Rias, and we have come up with a plan to free her from her contract with the Phoenix family, she said before breathing deeply, and it involves you and your sacred gear Titan's flame, she told him. What do you need me to do? He asked. I will be lending you to Rias for the week of the engagement between Rias and Riser. You will simply call upon all the power you can muster and try to defeat him, although killing him would never hurt anybody. If you manage to hurt him enough that Rias can simply eliminate him from the rating game she wants to challenge him to, then we shall extract Issei Hyoto's sacred gear, which has revealed itself to be the Longinus class sacred gear known to be the boosted gear, and give it to you while returning Issei back to human civilization as he is nigh useless to all parties, she explained. Very well then, I shall comply with this task. Naruto answered. Thank you, Naruto-kun, you don't know what that means to me, she whispered as she rose up and walked up behind him and rested her chin upon his broad shoulder. You know, you still owe me the present that you forgot to give me on my 18th birthday, she whispered in his ear. Naruto smiled softly at her, I haven't made up my mind on it yet. And besides, Akeno keeps trying to butt her head in when I am trying to think of one for you, and now you are nearing 19, he said softly. I will take anything you are willing to give me, within reason of course, she said softly. I know, just wait a little bit longer, master, he said, turning his head to face her, smiling softly. Sona let out a soft giggle. You know that you don't have to call me that when we're alone, Naruto-kun, just call me Sona or So-chan, she said jokingly. -4 days later, Rias sighed as she looked at the unconscious form of Issei. He had done her a great favor of bringing Asia into the fold, but even after the amount of time he spent running around, he had yet to get anywhere with his power. It was utterly ridiculous how weak he was even with the power of the boosted gear at his command. Like seriously, a magic power level of only 200 was just sad. Kiba had a magic power level of roughly 3,370, Koneko held a power level of 3,000 alone, and Akeno was at a power level of 4,200 with her being 5,430. Like it was so sad that the new member of her peerage, Asia Argento, held a power level of 2,490, but of course she focused mainly on magic, so yeah. He was of little use against Riser with such a low level of power, so she decided that it was best to just extract the boosted gear from him. But it was so pathetic. Naruto, when he was sealed up, had a magic power level of 10,000, and when he was unsealed his power skyrocketed into the 100,000s until he reached noon and actually surpassed her brother and most of the Saiyans combined easily. She looked to the 4 other devils in the room. Are we ready to extract the gear? She asked. Yes, all preparations are met and are ready to be fulfilled. Tsubaki said, we will begin when you are ready, she told the redhead. Alright, extracting the boosted gear in 3, 2, 1 now, she said as a golden sigil begun to glow underneath Issei. Oh, the humility, all they had to do was flash the perv her tits and he passed out in less than a second. She of course kept a spell on hand to ensure he didn't wake up cause it was a really painful process to extract it from a conscious person. Head be sore tomorrow but head live. It took roughly 3 hours, but eventually the sacred gear was removed from Issei's body and the perv was returned home and his memories altered along with all of the school's attendees so that everything seemed normal with the exception of Asia being a transfer student. The next day, Naruto, Kiba, Asia, Koneko, Rias, Sona, Tsubaki, Sanji, Momo, and Ruruko were all gathered in the Orc Club room with a table centered between the two peerages, and on top of this table sat the red gauntlet that held the spirit of the Welsh dragon Didraig itself. Rias cleared her throat. Well, Naruto-kun, here it is. As promised, the boosted gear. It took us roughly 3 hours to remove it from its former seal but we have it. Take it, she said as Sona grabbed it with both hands and held it up for him. Now, before you do anything, you need to know that by accepting this priceless item you will become a shared member of both Sona's as well as my peerage, she told him. Is such a thing even legal, Rias-sama? He asked her as he looked from the gauntlet to the redhead. I've talked it over with my sister and Lord Lucifer. It's been decided that since Rias was the one that recruited the original holder of the boosted gear that it will remain in her possession, but seeing as you were originally my rook when I gained you, you shall remain under my service, so a deal was struck to have you do only things of significance with Rias while you did your normal duties and stuff with me. Sona explained to him. So, Rias-sama's engagement with Riser, if it were challenged, I would have to fight for her as well. He asked. Indeed. In fact he's supposed to be here in 3 days, and I want you there to be the one to issue the challenge against him. And if he demands who gets what when they win, ask for his entire peerage and we'll go from there. Personally I want the Bomb Queen to see how well she can adapt to battle. Sona said giggling. If that is what you wish, Sona-sama. Naruto said as he took the boosted gear from her. -3 days later. Rias looked to Naruto. Okay, so you remember what needs to be said and done, right? She asked him. Yeah, I got it, he said nodding. Okay, good, because we only have one shot before she could finish. A golden magic circle appeared causing Rias to curse under her breath. Riser was here. Naruto had to cover his eyes as the whole room shined like it was harboring a miniature sun. The light was damn near blinding and the heat felt like they went into a sauna. He tried to open his eyes and could see everyone else in the room wasn't faring any better than him, covering their eyes and coughing at the sensation of ash and steam filling their senses. Oh, he had no trouble standing in the heat. He could do something similar if he released his seals, but this sensation was only because he was hiding his power. The light of the transportation technique died down to reveal a tall and handsome young man in his early 20s with short blonde hair and dark blue eyes. His outfit consists of a burgundy blazer with gold embroidery on the right with matching pants and black dress shoes. Underneath his open blazer is a white dress shirt that is not fully buttoned, just one button short, giving a slight view to his chest. This was Riser Phoenix of the esteemed house of Phoenix. Rias' fiancé, unwillingly, and the brother to Revel Phoenix. Naruto did not like him. Just from a single glance, the blonde-haired teen had already determined what kind of person this guy was, having seen his type plenty of times before. He was the handsome playboy type who had everything handed to him since birth and whose head was so large he could probably power a city the size of Tokyo for years if they learned how to harness all the hot air he had bloating his overinflated ego. In layman's terms, this guy was a certified douchebag. It's been a long time since I came to the human world, the man said, his eyes looking around the room before landing on Rias. When Naruto saw the delight spring into those eyes, he had to quell the sudden urge to punch the man's face in. The way Rias shuddered in disgust did not help impede this emotion any. My darling, Rias, I am so happy to see you. Riser Phoenix, the way Rias said his name did not invoke pleasant thoughts. It was a name spoken with disgust and enough disdain to fill the building. She obviously didn't like him. A second glow erupted in the room, allowing the others to calm themselves down before a lovely woman appearing to be in her early 20s with back-length silver hair that features a long braid on each side with small blue bows at the ends, while the rest is let down, which ends in twin braids and red eyes that glowed with power only a ultimate class devil could have. She cleared her throat and looked to Rias apologetically. I apologize for my tardiness, Rias-sama. I was caught up with something and thus I was unable to come sooner, she told the redhead. It's fine, Graphia, no harm done, she said before looking to her fiancé with hate-filled eyes, Riser. Rias spoke with neither anger or distaste in her voice, only a stern edge that showed she was in no mood for pleasantries. She opened one eye to look at the pompous smile of her fellow devil. I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't have preferred going a little longer without seeing you again. Oh, there's that wicked tongue I've grown accustomed to. Riser stood up and kept a hand on the couch to lean against. There's no reason to be so spiteful, Rias. Considering our situation, I think it would be for the best if you and I tried to improve our relationship. Rias crossed her arms and legs. Better for you. Not for me. Oh, you jest. Asia felt unnerved by this strange man that appeared from fire. She leaned in towards Yuto. Hey, what's with this man? Does he know Bucho or something? Yuto leaned in closer. His name is Riser Phoenix. He's one of the sons to the Phoenix clan, a pure-blooded devil like Bucho and Kaichu-san. Asia titled her head in confusion. Phoenix. Like the bird of myth and legend. Akino continued on. His family has a strong affinity to both flames and wind. But more than anything, their most amazing skill is their regenerative ability. They can heal most any fatal or crippling wound in just a matter of seconds, and their lifespans are so long that they're one of the closest things considered to be completely immortal. Asia chuckled nervously before gulping as she asked, what does that mean? You can't kill these chickens. Koneko stated with a slightly miffed tone as she narrowed her eyes at the man. Riser walked along the side of the couch before sitting on its arm. Now Rias, why can't you and I come to an agreement already? This matter was settled by our families. And even talked about between the mouths. Once it reaches levels like that, I think we are far past the point of arguing about the matter. You're right, our families already decided on this. Rias looked at the blonde devil facing her, but this isn't their decision to make. It's ours. And I've decided against it. Riser rolled his eyes and sighed. Really, Rias, are you that put off by the idea of marrying me? Rias narrowed her eyes. My biggest complaint with this marriage is that it's been decided that I have no say in it. I am not happy with the idea of having everything decided for me. Being betrothed to you is just rubbing salt in an open wound. Asia's eyes widened in shock as she looked at the veteran members of the peerage, getting nods that the news was real. Riser sighed and shook his head patronizingly before looking at the crimson-haired beauty. Rias, you and I, we are pure-blooded devils. Some of the few left that can still do something to help our species. The devils, they're being overrun by low-class and resurrected peons, leaving us as the minority. He held a hand to his chest before looking at the young woman. Our nobility is going to go extinct soon if we don't do something about it. Rias just stayed composed. I know the issue, Riser. If you want to convince me, please stop talking to me like I am a child. Riser placed himself in the couch and sat forward. If two of the remaining pillar households joined together like ours, it would be in the best interest of devils everywhere. Pure bloods could still hold influence and power over the lesser devils. We can still hold our standing if we marry together. Can't you imagine it? Yes, I can, Riser. Rias shook her head, but I have no interest in forcing people to follow me just because of my status. I am not so invested in stroking my pride like you are. Riser sighed and shook his head before smiling. Rias, whatever your feelings are to the issue, we both know it's too late. Going back on this wedding would be like spitting in the face of both of our households and the four great Mao. And I am sure you wouldn't want to disappoint them. Rias peerage all had varying looks on their faces as Riser continued to speak in a haughty tone. But they all had the same feeling of displeasure and uneasiness from listening to this man talk so patronizingly to their king. Enough, Riser. Rias slammed her hands onto the desk as she glared at the blonde man standing before her. If looks could kill, Riser would have been dead before he even had a chance to utter his last name. I've already told you, I am not going to marry you. You say that like you have a choice. Riser sounded amused, but there was also a hint of steel in his voice. We both know there isn't much you can do. Both our families have already decided on this and the contract's been written up. Don't forget that your family has been just as hasty to unite our two houses as mine. Don't speak so presumptuously. Rias narrowed her eyes. As the heir to the Grimoire family, I am the one who will decide who gets to be my partner. And regardless of that, I was already promised that I would be allowed to do as I pleased until after I graduated from a university in the human world. I fear you don't quite understand the situation, Rias my dear, Riser said snidely. Your parents and Searsek-sama fear your household may go extinct. In the previous war between the gods, fallen angels and devils, many pure-blooded devils lost their lives in the conflict. And that's not even mentioning the number of households that went extinct. It's only natural that our parents would struggle to protect our pure blood and household by joining together. The offspring of two high-ranking, pure-blooded devils is invaluable. You should know that. I won't destroy my household, Rias crossed her arms over her chest. I plan on siring an heir when I am ready. Her eyes sharpened like blades as she glared at Riser. But I won't marry you. I'll marry someone of my own choosing. Even the heirs of old households have that much a right. Riser gave a long-suffering sigh. His fingers twitched in agitation, a sure sign that he was beginning to lose his patience. You know, Rias, like you, I am a pure-blood devil of an old household. I bear the powerful name of Phoenix. I can't let that name get tarnished. I came all the way out here to the human world just to get you, but I don't like the human world much. Flames erupted from Riser's back, taking the form of wings and showing just why his clan name was Phoenix. The fires from his back spread, the sweltering heat had the members of Rias' peerage sweating profusely, their bodies becoming drenched in salty water and their clothes caking to their skin. Strangely enough, none of them were burned from the incredible heat. Naruto knew what this was, a show of skill. Riser was showing off, and it was beginning to piss him off. The flames of this world are filthy. For a devil who holds governance over wind and fire, it's unbearable. His eyes narrowed. I will take you back to the underworld with me. He looked over at her servants, Akano, Koneko, and Kiba. Naruto and Asia were on the other side by the door. Even if I have to incinerate your servants to do it. You lay one hand on my servants and I'll put those flames of yours out. Rias clenched her teeth. How dare this man threaten the lives of her servants? There was no way she could let such a threat go unpunished. Riser-sama, Grafia said, I suggest you calm down, or you may find those flames of yours getting doused. Oh, well, if the one who was given the title of strongest queen is getting involved, then I guess there's no helping it. I wouldn't want to have to face Searsek-sama's peerage. It has always been said that the Red Satan's peerage is full of indestructible monsters. Actually, I am not the one you should be worrying about, Grafia corrected. That was when Riser and everyone else noticed it. One of the few members of the orc had moved. Naruto stood behind Riser, two blades in his hand, one pressing against Riser's back, the other being held so lightly against his throat that Riser did not even realize it was there until he looked down. These blades were much different from standard weapons. They were elemental in creation, fire to be precise. HMPH, you think that some poultry flame is gonna hurt me? Riser sneered. Naruto shook his head and pressed the flame dagger to the fire devil's throat and made a small movement causing Riser to grunt in pain before he narrowed his eyes in confusion. Why would fire hurt him? His family commanded the element of fire itself. I would suggest that in the future, you refrain from threatening Rias' peerage. I don't take threats on my friends and allies lightly, he told the devil before continuing. Now I know that this particular set of business is not for me to be butting into, but, if I may propose a solution. Naruto said politely. As if anything you could offer would work. But, please, by all means go ahead. Riser said shrugging as Naruto removed his fire dagger away from his throat to return to Asia's side and stand before her in a protective manner. Well, I propose a wager, between the two of us. A simple one mind you, but a wager nonetheless. Naruto stated. Riser looked at him curiously along with the other devils. What are the rules for this wager, and what is the wager for? He asked. I fight against you and your entire peerage for Rias' freedom with Rias and her peerage. The rules are simple, fight against me with the intent to kill or don't fight me at all. Naruto said confidently. Such pride. And the rewards for the winner? Riser asked. If you win, then I shall become a devil under your control and serve your house for eternity until I die, and you can of course marry Rias as per the agreement between your houses. However, if I win, then your queen, and your entire peerage will work for me. It's a simple gamble, and it works more in your favor than you realize. Naruto said. Naruto said, holding his hand out, come on, what do you have to lose really? It's just a gamble. Riser snorted, very well then, I accept. And when you lose, be prepared to watch as I take Rias as well as her busty queen in marriage. I hope you'll enjoy the show, he said before he vanished in a flare of fire. All according to plan, Akeno said smiling. He won't know what hit him. Rias said before looking to Naruto, thank you Naruto, for doing that. I was afraid I would end up slapping him for his stupidity, she told him. Anything for you, Rias, he said smiling at her. Graphia just sighed as she shook her head. If she hadn't known of Rias' plan on bringing Naruto into her peerage as a temporary shared piece, she would be banging her head on the wall. Thanks for watching.